Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Energize Your Passion, the podcast where we light up your path to positivity, courage, and unstoppable energy. I'm your host, Sunshine, and your biggest cheerleader, and the spark to help you ignite your passion. Today, we're diving into a topic that touches everyone at some point in life: the fear of rejection. Yep, that nagging voice in your head that says, what if I'm not good enough? Or what if they say no? Spoiler alert, rejection isn't the end of the world. In fact, it's often the beginning of something beautiful. So grab your favorite drink, find a cozy spot, and let's chat about why rejection isn't your enemy, but your ultimate teacher. Ready? Let's jump in. Segment 1, Understanding the Fear. All right, let's kick things off by unpacking what rejection really is and why it holds so much power over us. At its core, rejection is a perceived threat to our sense of belonging. Back in caveman time, being left out of the group was a matter of life and death. So our brains are wired to avoid rejection like the plague. But here's the thing, life has evolved, and so can we. Rejection may feel personal, but it's often not about you at all. It's about the fit, the timing, or even the other person's mindset. Now, before we go get too deep, let's hear from our first listener, Sarah from Denver. She wrote in about a rejection that taught her a life-changing lesson. Hi, Sunshine. I wanted to share my story about how I got over rejection. I applied for a promotion I really wanted, but I didn't get it. At first, I was devastated and thought I wasn't good enough. But that rejection made me reflect on what I truly wanted. And guess what? I realized I didn't even want that job. It was a stepping stone to something better, and now I'm doing what I love. Thank you, Sarah. Isn't that powerful? Rejection has that funny way of redirecting us towards something more aligned with our purpose. Now let's hear from Brandon in New York, who shared a story about rejection that became a blessing in disguise. Hey, Sunshine. Love the podcast. I asked someone out who I had a crush on for months. When they said no, I was crushed. But a week later, I met someone amazing at a volunteer event. That rejection led me to find a connection I wouldn't trade for anything. Okay, let's dig a little deeper here because I think it's important to really understand why rejection feels as intense as it does. Have you ever noticed how rejection can hit us in ways that seem disproportionate? Like a friend doesn't text you back, or suddenly you're spiraling into, they don't care about me anymore. That's not just your imagination, it's your brain playing tricks on you. This fear of rejection isn't just psychological, it's deeply biological. Our brains are wired to seek connection. Think about it. Humans have always survived in groups. Being part of a community meant safety, food, and support. When we feel rejected, even in small ways, our brain reacts as if we've been cast out of the tribe. It's like a primal alarm system saying, danger, danger, something's wrong. So here's the good news. Just because your brain reacts this way doesn't mean the situation is as dire as it feels. In fact, one of the first steps to overcoming the fear of rejection is simply recognizing this hardwiring. Once you understand that it's a natural response, you can start to manage it instead of letting it control you. Now let's talk about something that often fuels this fear: the stories we tell ourselves about rejection. Have you ever been in a situation where you didn't get what you wanted, and instead of seeing it as a neutral event, you made it about your worth? I wasn't chosen because I'm not good enough. They said no because I'm not lovable. These stories are dangerous because they turn rejection from an event into an identity. And here's the truth. Rejection is rarely about you as a person. It's about the circumstance. Maybe the timing wasn't right. Maybe the other person or company was dealing with their own issues. Or maybe it simply wasn't a good fit. But none of that diminishes your value. Let's get back to Sarah's story for a moment. I love how she turned what felt like a devastating no into an opportunity for growth. Think about this. If Sarah had gotten that promotion, she might have stayed in a role that didn't truly light her up. But instead, that rejection pushed her to reflect and pivot towards something more fulfilling. And Brandon's story, wow. Doesn't that just warm your heart? It's a perfect reminder that sometimes the universe has bigger plans for us than we see in the moment. His rejection wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning of a new chapter. I want to pause here and ask you, what's a rejection in your life that in hindsight worked out for the better? Maybe it was a relationship that didn't pan out, or a job you didn't land, or even a social situation that didn't go as planned. Think about how that no shaped your path. I bet if you look closely, you'll see that it redirected you towards something even better. And while we're here, let's acknowledge how vulnerable it is to put yourself out there in the first place, whether it's applying for a job, asking someone out, or sharing your creative work. You're taking a risk, and that's brave. I want you to take a moment right now to celebrate that bravery. Yes, rejection can sting, but isn't it also proof that you're trying, growing, and showing up for your life? Here's another layer to think about. Sometimes our fear of rejection isn't just about the moment. It's about what we believe it means for the future. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, if they say no, I never recover? Or if this doesn't work out, nothing else will. That's catastrophizing, my friends, and it's another trick our brains play. But let me tell you something. Rejection isn't a dead end. It's a detour. Life is full of paths, and sometimes the one you're on just needs a little adjusting. Think of rejections as the universe way of saying, hey, there's a better way. Let me show you. Let me share a quick story from my own life. I remember when I applied for a dream job years ago. I poured my heart into the application, rehearsed for the interview, and even bought a new outfit. I was sure it was mine. And then I got the email. We've decided to move forward with another candidate. Ouch. At first, I felt exactly like Sarah, deflated, questioning my abilities and wondering why I wasn't enough. But looking back, that rejection was a turning point. It forced me to take a step back and ask myself, what do I really want? That clarity led me to this podcast, to connecting with all of you, and to living a life that's even more aligned with my passions than I ever imagined. Now, let's talk about how we can start shifting our mindset around rejection. One of the most powerful tools is gratitude. I know that sounds counterintuitive. How can we be grateful for something that hurts? But when you start looking for the hidden blessings in every no, you open yourself up to growth. For example, instead of saying, I wasn't chosen, so I must not be good enough, try saying, this wasn't the right opportunity, and I'm thankful for the chance to find one that's a better fit. It takes practice, but over time, this shift in perspective can transform how you experience rejection. Let's wrap up this segment with a quick exercise. The next time you face rejection, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. That's right, 3 questions. Number 1, what did I learn from this experience? Number 2, how can I grow because of it? Number 3, what new opportunities might this open up for me? Write those answers down if you can. You'll be amazed at how much clarity and peace this process can bring. All right, my friends, we've laid the foundation by understanding the fear of rejection. Coming up, we'll explore how to face it with courage. But before we move on, let me remind you of this. Rejection isn't about your worth. It's about alignment. Stay with me. Segment 2, facing rejection with courage. Okay, we've talked about why rejection feels so scary. Now let's get into the how. How do we face it head on without letting it crush our spirit? First, let's reframe rejection. Instead of seeing it as a failure, view it as a redirection. Every no brings you closer to a yes if you're willing to keep going. Here's an inspiring story from Tasha in Atlanta about how she embraced rejection in her career. Hi, sunshine. I've been rejected from so many job interviews that I've lost count. But I realized something. Every time I was turned down, I asked for feedback. That feedback helped me improve, and eventually I landed a role that fits me perfectly. Each rejection was a step forward. Wow, Tasha, what an incredible perspective. Feedback is a gift if we're open to it. And speaking of perspective, our next story comes from Eli in Seattle, who overcame the fear of rejection in a completely different way. Hi, sunshine. Rejection used to terrify me, so I decided to challenge myself by intentionally seeking it out. I've asked for things I knew would get a no, like free coffee or discounts at stores. It was awkward at first, but it helped me realize that rejection isn't so scary. It's just a part of life. Eli, I love this. Intentional rejection? What a bold way to face your fears, and something I would have never thought about. Remember this. Every time you face rejection, you're building courage. And courage, my friends, is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. All right, let's really dig into this because courage is such a transformative thing when it comes to rejection. Facing rejection isn't about pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about choosing to show up anyway. That's bravery. You don't need to be fearless to face rejection. You just need to take the next small step forward. Let's start with reframing rejection because this is a game changer. So often we attach the word failure to rejection, but what if we swapped it out for the word redirection? Doesn't that feel lighter already? Picture this. You're walking down a path and suddenly there's a detour sign. Do you stand there forever feeling like a failure? No, you found a new route. That's exactly what rejection is. A sign that there's another, possibly better path waiting for you. When Tasha shared her story, what stood out to me was her approach to feedback. She didn't just face rejection and stop there. She used it as a mirror to reflect on what she could improve. That's not just courage, that's wisdom. How often do we stop ourselves from seeking feedback because we're afraid of hearing the truth? But feedback isn't criticism, it's a tool. It's like getting a roadmap after taking a wrong turn. Let me share a quick tip for turning rejection into a learning experience. After facing a no, take a moment to breathe and reflect. Then ask for feedback if that's appropriate. Not everyone will provide it, but when they do, it's like gold. Use that feedback not as an indictment of your worth, but as a way to refine your approach. And then there's Eli. Wow, what can we say? What an inspiring approach to facing rejection head on. I love the ideal of intentionally seeking out rejection to desensitize yourself to it. It reminds me of something called rejection therapy. The ideal is simple. You go out of your way to get rejected in small, low stakes situations like asking for free coffee or an upgrade on a flight. It's not about the outcome. It's about training your brain to realize that rejection isn't the end of the world. Eli's story is such a beautiful reminder that the fear of rejection is often worse than the rejection itself. Think about it. How many times have you psyched yourself out of asking for something because you were sure the answer would be no? And then, on the rare occasion you do ask, you'll be surprised when the answer is yes. Even if it's not, you realize the world doesn't crumble around you. Here's a little exercise to try if you're looking to build that courage muscle. Make a list of small asks you can make this week. Things you wouldn't normally ask for because you're afraid of hearing no. Maybe it's asking your boss for a flexible work day, asking a friend for a favor, or even asking for a discount at a store. The goal isn't to get a yes, it's to get comfortable with the no. Let's talk a bit more about courage because it's not just about big, bold moves. Sometimes courage is as simple as choosing to get up and try again after being rejected. Imagine you're at the gym working out a muscle that's a little weak. The first time you lift that weight, it feels impossible, but you don't quit after one try. You keep showing up, adding a little more each time. Courage is just like that. Every time you face rejection and keep going, you're strengthening your bravery muscle. One thing that can really help is surrounding yourself with stories of resilience. Look at people you admire, whether they're authors, entrepreneurs, athletes, or artists, and you'll find that rejection is a huge part of their journey. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. Michael Jordan didn't make his high school basketball team. Oprah was told she wasn't fit for television. Rejection didn't stop them, it shaped them. Think about this. What if the very thing you're afraid of, rejection, is the thing that will lead you to your greatest success? That's the mindset shift we're aiming for here. I want to add another layer to this conversation. Self-compassion. Facing rejection with courage doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It's okay to feel disappointed, hurt, or even a little angry when you're rejected. Those emotions are valid and they're part of the process. But here's the key. Don't unpack and live there. No, ma'am. Don't unpack and live there. Acknowledge the feelings And then remind yourself that rejection isn't a reflection of your worth. Self-compassion might look like journaling about how you're feeling, calling a friend to vent, or even treating yourself to something small that brings you joy. It's about being kind to yourself in the same way you'll comfort a friend. Another way to cultivate courage is to focus on the bigger picture. Sometimes we're so zoomed in on the immediate no that we forget to step back and see the larger story. Take a moment to think about your long-term goals. Is this rejection truly a roadblock, or is it just one small bump on the path? Keeping your eyes on the horizon can make that no feel a lot less overwhelming. Before we move on to the next segment, I want to leave you with a mantra that you can use whenever you're facing rejection. This is not the end of my story. It's just one chapter. Every time you hear no, remember that it's not a period. It's a comma. Your story continues, and you're the one who gets to write it. So let's make a pact right now. That's right, right now. The next time we face rejection, and yes, it's going to happen because we're human. We're not going to let it define us. We're going to take a deep breath, remind ourselves of our worth, and try again. Deal? All right, let's keep the courage train moving as we dive into our next segment. Stay with me. Segment 3, Lessons Hidden in Rejection. All right, let's shift gears and talk about the lessons rejection can teach us. Spoiler, they're often more valuable than the wind we were chasing. Take Maya from Austin, for example. She discovered a lesson in a romantic rejection that changed her life. Hey, sunshine, I was ghosted by someone I thought was the one. At first, I was heartbroken, but that rejection made me reflect on what I truly want in a partner. I started focusing on myself, and now I feel more confident and happier than ever. Maya, thank you for sharing. Rejection has a way of making us pause and realign what really matters the most. And then there's Jonathan from Chicago, whose story about rejection in his creative pursuit is so inspiring. Hi, Sunshine. I'm a writer, and I've been rejected by countless publishers. Each time, I use the feedback to refine my craft. It was tough, but last year my short story won an award. Those rejections weren't failures, they were stepping stones. Jonathan, what an amazing journey, and congratulations on the award. Every rejection shapes us into who we're meant to be. So here's the lesson for this segment. Rejection isn't the end of the road. It's the signpost pointing you in the right direction. All right, friends, let's dive deeper into the hidden treasure chest of lessons that rejection offers. Because let's be honest, when we're in the thick of it, rejection doesn't exactly feel like a gift. It feels more like a punch to the gut. But when we take a step back, those moments of rejection often hold the very lesson we need to grow, thrive, and realign with our true selves. Let's start with Maya's story because it's such a relatable one. How many of us have been through heartbreak and thought this is the end of the world? But for Maya, that painful experience became an opportunity to turn inward, reflect, and truly get to know herself. Sometimes rejection teaches us what we don't want, which is just as important as knowing what we do want. Let me share something personal here. I remember a time when I was ghosted by someone I thought was my perfect match. I spent weeks wondering what I had done wrong, replaying every conversation in my head. But eventually, I realized that the rejection wasn't about me. Nope. It was about them not being ready for the kind of connection I was looking for. That experience pushed me to focus on my own growth, and it led me to some of the most fulfilling relationships of my life. Here's a takeaway from Maya's story. Rejection isn't just about loss. It's about clarity. It's about chance to ask yourself, what do I really want? And sometimes the answer to that question sets you on a path you never would have considered otherwise. Now, let's turn to Jonathan's story because, wow, isn't that inspiring? Rejection in creative pursuit can feel particularly personal because it's like someone is saying your ideals, your vision, your heart, they're not good enough. But Jonathan didn't let that stop him. He took the feedback, refined his craft, and kept going. I want to pause here and talk about feedback because it's such a powerful part of the rejection process. When someone gives you constructive feedback, they're not saying you're a failure. They're saying, here's how you can grow. It takes courage to be open to that feedback. But when you embrace it, it becomes one of your greatest tools for success. Let's zoom out for a moment and think about rejection as a whole. Have you ever noticed that rejection often comes right before a breakthrough? It's like the universe testing your resolve. Jonathan's story reminds us that perseverance is key. He didn't just write off those rejections, pun intended. He used them as stepping stones to improve. Here's something to consider. What if every rejection you've ever faced was simply a setup for your next success? What if every no was preparing you for a bigger, better yes? It's all about perspectives. Now, I want to challenge you to think about a rejection you've faced recently. Maybe it was at work, in a relationship, or even a personal goal you didn't quite achieve. Instead of dwelling on disappointment, ask yourself, what lesson is hidden here? Sometimes the lesson is about timing. Other times, it's about effort, alignment, or even the courage to keep going. But there's always something to learn. Here's an example from my own life. When I first started this podcast, I reached out to dozens of potential guests, hoping they'd join me for an interview. And guess what? Most of them said no or didn't respond at all. At first, I felt embarrassed, but then I realized that each rejection was teaching me something, that I needed to do this podcast alone, that I really didn't need any guests at all. I can rely on myself to carry this podcast. And that's how Energize Your Passion came about, with me sharing who I am, my authentic self, just me by myself. I learned how to craft better pitches, how to connect with people authentically, and most importantly, how to keep showing up even when the answer wasn't what I wanted to hear. Let's talk about resilience for a minute because that's another powerful lesson rejection teaches us. When you face rejection and keep going, you're building a level of emotional strength that nothing else can give you. It's like forging armor. Each rejection adds another layer of protection, so the next one stings a little less. And here's something beautiful about resilience. It's not about bouncing back. It's about bouncing forward. When you approach rejection as a learning opportunity, you're not just recovering, you're growing. One of the most profound lessons rejection can teach us is about authenticity. Sometimes rejection happens because we're trying to fit into a mold that isn't truly ours. Maybe it's a job we're chasing because we think we should, or a relationship we're holding on to because it looks good on paper. Rejection can be the universe's way of saying, this isn't for you because there's something better waiting. I want to circle back to Jonathan's story for a moment because it's such a testament to the power of perseverance. Imagine if he had stopped after the first rejection, or the second, or the 10th. He wouldn't have reached that moment of success where his short story won an award. Every rejection he faced was a brick in the foundation of his ultimate achievement. So here's a question to you. What foundation are you building for your rejections? Are you using them as excuses to stop or as reasons to keep going? Let me share a quick tip for finding the lessons in rejection. After a no, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, what did this experience teach me about myself? Number 2, what can I do differently next time? Number 3, how has this rejection clarified my goals or values? Write down your answers if you can. Seeing them on paper can help you connect the dots and uncover patterns you might not have noticed before. Before we wrap up this segment, I want to leave you with one final thought. Rejection isn't just a detour, it's a teacher. It's there to guide you, shape you, and prepare you for what's next. Let's recap the big lesson here. Rejection isn't the end of the road. It's the signpost pointing you in the right direction. And often, the lessons you learn from rejection are the ones that lead to your biggest breakthroughs. All right, my friends, let's keep the momentum going. In the next segment, we'll explore how to build resilience and keep moving forward. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. Segment 4, building resilience for the future. We've explored what rejection is, how to face it, and the lessons it offers. Now let's talk about resilience, the secret sauce to bouncing back stronger every time. Resilience is about self-care, support systems, and mindset. When you prioritize your well-being, rejection stings a little less. Here's a story from Kara in Los Angeles who built resilience in the face of repeated setbacks. Hi, sunshine. After my startup failed, I felt like giving up. But I started journaling, exercising, and leaning on my friends for support. Slowly but surely, I regained my confidence, and now I'm working on a new business ideal with even more passion. Kara, you're a rock star. Resilience is all about finding strength in the little things that lift you up. And finally, let's hear from Ahmed in Toronto, who found resilience through community. Hi, sunshine. I was rejected from a grad program I dreamed of. It was tough, but my mentor reminded me of other paths to my goal. That encouragement kept me going, and now I'm thriving in a similar program. Ahmed, what a testament to the power of support. Surrounding yourself with positive people makes all the difference. Resilience isn't about never failing. It's about rising every time you do. Let me say that again. Resilience isn't about never failing. It's about rising every time you do. All right, friends, let's dive into the heart of resilience. By now, we've established that rejection is inevitable, but how we respond to it, that's where our power lies. Resilience is like a superpower. It's not about never getting knocked down, it's about getting back up every single time with a little more wisdom and strength than before. Let's start with Kayra's story, which is such an inspiring reminder that resilience is built in small, everyday actions. When her startup failed, she could have thrown in the towel, but instead, she chose to take care of herself. Journaling, exercising, and leaning on friends. These might seem like simple things, but together, they create a foundation of strength. Kara's story reminds me of something I heard once. Self-care isn't selfish, it's survival. When we prioritize our well-being, whether it's through a morning walk, a quiet moment with a book, or just taking time to breathe, we're giving ourselves the fuel we need to face life challenges. If you're looking to build resilience, ask yourself this: what are the small, nurturing things you can do for yourself every day? Maybe it's creating a gratitude journal where you jot down 3 things you're thankful for. Maybe it's scheduling regular coffee dates with friends who lift your spirits. Resilience doesn't come from one big dramatic moment. It comes from the tiny, consistent acts of care and kindness you show yourself. Now, let's turn to Ahmed's story because it highlights another key ingredient of resilience: community. When Ahmed faced rejection, it was the encouragement of his mentor that helped him keep going. That's such a powerful reminder that we don't have to do this alone. Think about the people in your life who lift you up. Maybe it's a mentor, a friend, a family member, or even a colleague. These are your lifelines where the going gets tough. And if you're not sure who your support system is, that's okay. This is your chance to start building one. One way to strengthen your community is by being vulnerable. I know, vulnerability is scary. But when you open up about your struggles, you create space for others to support you. And more often than not, you'll find that people are eager to help. Speaking of support systems, I want to talk about the power of mentorship. Ahmed's mentor didn't just offer words of encouragement, they helped him see new possibilities. That's the magic of a good mentor. They widen your perspective and remind you that rejection isn't the end of the road. If you don't have a mentor, don't worry. It's never too late to find one. Start by identifying someone whose journey inspires you. Reach out with a genuine compliment and a clear request for guidance, whether it's a quick coffee chat or advice on a specific challenge. Most people are flattered when you ask for their wisdom, and they're often more than willing to help. Now let's talk about mindset. Because this is where resilience truly begins. When you're faced with rejection, it's easy to fall into a cycle of negative thinking. I'm not good enough. I never succeed. But resilience means challenging those thoughts and replacing them with more empowering ones. Here's a little exercise to try. The next time you catch yourself in a spiral of self-doubt, pause. That's right, pause. And ask yourself, is this thought helping me or hurting me? If it's hurting, refrain from it. For example, instead of thinking, I fail, try, I learned something valuable. Instead of, I never get there. Try, this is just one step on my journey. Mindset shifts like these don't happen overnight, but with practice, they become second nature. And when they do, you'll find that rejection loses much of its sting. Let me share something personal with you. When I was first starting this podcast, there were days when I doubted myself. Yeah, I did. I worried about whether anyone would listen, whether my stories and insights would resonate. And yes, I faced rejection. Guests who declined to join the show, pitches that was unanswered. But what kept me going was this simple truth. Every no was bringing me closer to a yes, and every step of the journey was teaching me something valuable about myself and my mission. Resilience isn't about never feeling doubt. It's about choosing to move forward despite it. It's about focusing on the bigger picture and reminding yourself why you started it in the first place. Before we move on, I want to share a quick resilient toolkit. Things you can lean on when rejection hits hard. Number one, self-care rituals. Find what soothes you, whether it's a bubble bath, a good book, or walk in nature. Number two, gratitude practice. Shift your focus from what you've lost to what you still have. Number three, affirmations. Remind yourself of your worth with phrases like, I am capable, I am resilient, and I am enough. Number four, support systems. Lean on your friends, family, and mentors. Let them remind you of your strength. And number five, action steps. Don't dwell on the rejection. Take the next small step forward. Let's wrap this segment up with a final thought. Resilient isn't about never failing. It's about rising every time you do. And every time you rise, you're building a stronger, braver, more unstoppable version of yourself. So here's your challenge. The next time you face rejection, and let's be real, it's going to happen. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? And what's my next step forward? All right, my friends, let's keep the energy flowing as we move into our final segment. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. Segment 5, recap and final thoughts. Whee! What a journey we've been on today, my friends. We've dug deep into the fear of rejection, peeled back its layers, and uncovered some powerful truths. Let's take a moment to breathe, reflect, and soak in all the insights we've shared. Rejection is such a small word, but it can carry such heavy feelings. Yet, as we've explored today, rejection isn't the monster it pretends to be. It's not personal. It's a stepping stone, a teacher, and sometimes even a blessing in disguise. So let's do a quick recap of the big takeaways from our conversation today. Number one, understand rejection. Rejection isn't about your worth. It's about fit, timing, and alignment. Back in segment 1, we talked about how our brains are wired to avoid rejection because it feels like a threat to belonging. But as we heard from Sarah in Denver, rejection often serves as a redirection. It's life's way of saying, not here, but keep going. And let's not forget Brandon's story about rejection and love. It was a no that led him to someone even more aligned with his values and heart. That's the beauty of understanding rejection. It's rarely a dead end. It's more like a detour towards something better. Think of rejection as life's editor. It's not saying your story isn't good. It's helping you refine it. The job you didn't get, the relationship that didn't work out, the opportunity that slipped through your fingers. They're all part of a bigger picture. You just have to trust that the right pieces will fall into place. Number 2, face it with courage. Segment 2 was all about bravery, wasn't it? Facing rejection takes guts. Yes, it does. But every time you do it, you're building that courage muscle. Remember Tasha from Atlanta. She turned job interview rejections into opportunities for growth by asking for feedback. And Eli in Seattle. Oh, how I loved his story. Yeah. Intentionally seeking rejection. That's next level bravery. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to keep going despite it. So the next time rejection comes knocking, take a deep breath and remind yourself that you're building your bravery muscle. It's okay to feel the sting, but not let it stop you. Let it propel you forward instead. Number 3, find the lessons. In segment 3, we unpack the idea that every rejection has a hidden lesson. Sometimes it's about realigning with your values, like Nia from Austin did after her heartbreak. Other times it's about sharpening your skills, as Jonathan from Chicago showed us with his writing journey. Here's the thing about lessons. They're not always obvious. Sometimes it takes weeks, months, or even years to see the gift hidden in a rejection. But trust me, it's always there. The key is to stay open and curious. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How can I grow from this? Rejection is like sandpaper. It might feel rough, but it's shaping you into something smoother, stronger, and more resilient. Number 4, build resilience. Resilience. Our focus in segment 4, and probably my favorite takeaway of all. Resilience is what keeps us going when the world says no. It's about self-care, community, and mindset. Kara from Los Angeles taught us the power of small, nurturing actions. Journaling, exercising, leaning on friends. Ahmed from Toronto reminded us that resilience thrives in the presence of supportive people who believe in us, even when we're doubting ourselves. Think of resilience as your safety net. When rejection tries to knock you down, resilience catches you and bounces you back up. It's not about avoiding the fall. It's about rising every time you do. Here's a little bonus tip. Celebrate your resilience. Every time you face rejection and keep going, give yourself credit. You're stronger than you think, and every step forward is a victory. The fear of rejection doesn't have to control your life. You have the power to turn rejection into redirection, courage, and opportunity. It's all about perspective, my friends. When you see rejection as a stepping stone rather than a stop sign, everything changes. So what's your next step? Is there a risk you've been avoiding because you're afraid of hearing no? Maybe it's applying for that dream job, starting that passion project, or asking someone out. Whatever it is, I challenge you to take that step. Remember, every no gets you closer to your yes. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. Share your stories of overcoming rejection with me on social media. I love reading your experiences. And who knows, maybe your story will inspire someone else in a future episode. And if this episode brought you a little light today, consider leaving a 5-star rating or sharing it with a friend who could use some encouragement. Today, we can build a community of bold, resilient, and passionate people who aren't afraid to face rejection and chase their dreams. Until next time, stay bold, stay positive, and keep energizing your passion. So, with a big virtual hug and all the good vibes I'm sending your way, you've got this. This is Sunshine, signing off.